Okay, folks, thanks for joining us for another monthly call and kind of rebuilding our energy around the National Infrastructure Bank. Today we have some big news. We're up to 55 co-sponsors. So round of applause. Just a few months ago, we were at zero. 75% of the Democrats in North Carolina have signed on, and soon we'll get Don Davis to get 100%. But I think it's gaining attention and momentum. And part of what these calls are supposed to do is just get people excited and interested and find out what's going on with elected officials across the country and why they support the notion of an infrastructure bank. And then take this to the next step where we do these 30-minute calls all week long, every week, 365. And those calls can be done and we can coordinate with them so that we can get your representatives, your congressional members to sign on and get this passed. So without further ado, because I know people have time tonight, they want to get on to the things, I would like to start off with Representative Phil Rubin here with us. Phil's done some great work here in North Carolina. Phil is an attorney and serves in the North Carolina House of Representatives. He represents part of Raleigh. He graduated magna cum laude from the University of Georgia and summa cum laude from Duke University Law School, where he was editor-in-chief of the Duke Law Journal. Joined the firm of Covington and Burling before his appointment as Assistant United States Attorney in the Eastern District of North Carolina, where he handled constitutional litigation on appeals. So, Phil, if you'd like to speak to why you support this and what your thoughts are, take it away.
I think he's not on yet, Randy. Go to Mayor Ewing.
Mayor John Ewing from Omaha. Omaha is the largest city in Nebraska with almost 500,000 people. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice and Business and a Master of Science in Urban Studies. He served the Omaha Police Department for 25 years, from 1981 to 2006, and retired at the rank of Deputy Chief beginning in 2006. He was elected 5 times to the Douglas County Treasurer's Office. He became the City of Omaha's 52nd mayor on June 9th. Mayor John Ewing.
Thank you very much, Phil, for having me. And I'm going to continue to push the people in Omaha and our congressional delegation to support this infrastructure effort, simply because I know it's a great way to create jobs, high-paying jobs, as well as reduce the burden on local property taxpayers when it comes to fixing infrastructure. We know very well across the country that we have a decaying infrastructure, and infrastructure that really hasn't kept up with the needs of the people of our country. And I think it's critically important. I've had a number of discussions with our congressional delegation, and they are all lockstep with the theme of national infrastructure bill. I think it's just a matter of getting this in front of them and then seeing what we can actually get people to propose in the House and the Senate so they can actually move toward action. Our city council, unfortunately, we had an individual who's running for Congress in the 2nd District and decided to hijack this effort, but we're still going to continue to move forward, and I believe we're going to have success and be able to get the Nebraska delegation to support the effort.
We really appreciate your work, Mayor. And I think it is incredibly important that we get our cities behind this by resolution across the country, and getting Omaha behind it's going to be really, really helpful, and getting as people from Nebraska behind this. Obviously, I'm sure people saw the latest information that came out. The interest on our national debt is now equivalent to where we are with what we're paying for defense, which means that unless we get this bill into law, I don't see a pathway to addressing infrastructure when we're paying almost $1 trillion a year in interest.
I would agree with you.
This is so important for our country now and for our children and our children's children. So thank you very much, Mayor Ewing.
Absolutely.
I will share with you, I had experiences in dealing with city councils that have different ideas about resolutions, and you would think that some of them would be really easy to pass. I had one on human trafficking, if you could believe it, that they wanted a wordsmith for 40 minutes. It's pretty
Wow.
simple. We're against trafficking, but it
Sure,
just
exactly.
happens. Exactly.
And we should be for infrastructure and we should be for a national solution simply because we don't have the ability as a city or a state to be able to address the infrastructure needs we have. But
Exactly.
sometimes people want to play politics, and that's okay. November will be over and we'll go back at it again and get it done.
Thing is, when they want to play politics, we just stay focused and just stay focused on what our mission is. And that's the key,
Absolutely.
just come back. So thank you very much, Mayor. I really appreciate you getting on the call. Anthony, are you on the call?
I am.
All right. Well, Anthony is a farmer and a rural development consultant from Abington, Virginia, so right next door to us, and the author of Building a Healthy Economy from the Bottom Up, Harnessing Real-World Experience for Transformative Change. Anthony was the Democratic candidate for Congress in Virginia's 9th District in 2018. He co-founded the Rural Urban Bridge Initiative in 2021. A national organization, Ruby, works to help progressives, liberals, and Democrats understand the underlying causes of the rural-urban divide and take steps to overcome it through education, media work, policy change, and local community action. He lives and farms with his wife, Laurel. You're exactly the kind of person we need involved with this, Anthony. So talk to us.
Well, thanks for letting me be a part of this. I hope the other speakers are able to get on, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the National Infrastructure Bank from a rural point of view. Obviously, the Infrastructure Bank is going to cut across geography, and rural areas on the whole have more infrastructure gaps and problems than cities and suburbs. And the other issue about rural areas is practically any kind of infrastructure you discuss is going to be more expensive to build because of topography and distance. So, for instance, broadband, it just simply costs a lot more to get broadband when people are spread out. So we have the same issues as the rest of the country: old bridges, roads with potholes and problems, bridges that have been washed away by Hurricane Helene or something else, water and sewer treatment. Still, even after 30 years of federal investment and a lot of progress, still plenty of problems with communities that don't have adequate, or in some cases, any sewer treatment. But I'm going to focus on something that's a little different, and it's part of the National Infrastructure Bank, the part I'm most excited about. And that's what some people refer to as value-adding infrastructure. So I'm going to tell a quick story and to illustrate it. 30 years ago, we started the first food aggregation and distribution hub in Appalachia. We started it because most of the small farmers in Southwest Virginia and East Tennessee were tobacco farmers. And the tobacco program at that point was on its way out. And so they needed alternatives. And we went to them with a simple proposition. If you raise produce and other items, eggs, organic produce, we will find large buyers for you. The problem was none of these farmers could grow at a scale to meet the demands of supermarkets and universities. The other problem was most of them didn't have the capital to be able to go out and buy refrigeration and grading lines and washing stations and all the things that happen between the picking and when we see it on the shelves of Kroger or A&P or wherever we shop. So we created, between the farmers and the market, a simple but critical piece of infrastructure called a food hub, where these farmers could bring their produce and other items eventually for washing, packing, grading, and then shipping all together under a brand name called Appalachian Harvest. This is and it's been enormously successful. It's going on 25 years later. This is an example of the kind of infrastructure that allows small to mid-sized farmers, fishermen and women, foresters and loggers to be able to gain access to markets that on their own they can't do. And because they have a stake in it, they're not selling to one of the big four meat packing giants who just screws them out of every last dime. They're selling in a cooperative or semi-cooperative fashion so that they actually get a lot of the value of the product. This kind of value-adding infrastructure is so critical to rural areas because the nature of so many of our businesses in agriculture, in herbs, in materials, is that we usually get very little value of the final product. When we see log trucks and trains driving with high quality Appalachian timber, but they're just logs, we know that 90 or 95 cents of the value of every dollar that ultimately brings will not be to the local community. Only a nickel or a dime will stay. If we set up that infrastructure where we can saw those logs, kiln dry them, and turn them into hardwood flooring, then the farmers, the foresters, and the community retains so much more of the value. So that, to me, of all the many exciting pieces, it's maybe the smallest part in terms of dollars, but it would make an enormous difference throughout rural America, whether it's farm country, fisheries, forestry, or other things. One last thing I'll say is in terms of selling it, I don't believe we have any Republican co-sponsors yet. Is that right, Randy?
We do not yet, but that doesn't mean they won't be coming.
Right. So, of course, there's a lot of silly political reasons for that. But if we can start getting farmers and loggers and fishermen and women to be advocating for this because they know it's going to give them a leg up in a very difficult market, we might be able to start penetrating that partisanship and actually being able to get support from not only Republican legislators, but rank and file. So that's my little presentation. That's a piece of the infrastructure bank that I'm so excited about that sometimes gets forgotten when we talk about roads, bridges, and broadband.
I'm very happy you brought that up, Anthony, because there's about 17 on the list that Alfeca usually shares, that comes from the Society of Engineers. But the infrastructure that you're describing is really important, not only to our food sheds and to getting good quality food locally, but also just the infrastructure to get that food to market. And it's also dollars in the local community that don't disappear, which is the key.
Right, absolutely.
And a lot of folks kind of don't understand that, or they think that, oh, you're trying to overregulate me because I'm in a rural county that butts up against Raleigh and Chapel Hill, but a lot of my county is actually rural, and we have the most farms per capita in the state of North Carolina. So I'm very familiar with what you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing that information.
You bet.
We are going to move on to our next speaker. Hopefully those that were called earlier will come back, but I do think we have Senator Blessing is here and ready to speak. Senator Blessing is serving his second term in the Ohio Senate. Began his career in the legislature serving as a member of the Ohio House of Representatives, representing the 29th Ohio House District. Senator Blessing has an extensive background in electrical engineering, currently works as an engineer at Super Systems Inc. in Cincinnati, and previously worked at Duke Energy and Nova Engineering, earned a Bachelor of Arts in Mathematics and a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering at the University of Cincinnati. So you're a Bearcat. Okay. The senator is a licensed professional engineer and is a member of the Ohio Society of Professional Engineers. Well, I mean, one of the greatest basketball players from Indiana went and played. It was a Bearcat, the Big O. I'm a Hoosier.
Oscar Robertson, yeah.
Robertson, exactly. So please share with us why you're interested in this.
Yes, and sorry I got on. I had a little bit of technical difficulty, but the previous speaker, I think if I have his name correct, Robert Flacavento, it sounded like I was hearing something out of Louis Brandeis with respect to absentee ownership and how this would, the National Infrastructure Bank might fix that. And if so, I apologize for missing that because I'm very interested in it. But with that, I will tell everybody, I did hear that, you haven't found any Republican co-sponsors in Congress on something like that. And that's a shame because I'm a Republican, and I've looked at this idea, and it's amazing. And frankly, I had something similar 10 years ago at the state level. We wanted to do a state bond bank, which obviously is not identical, because we knew that we could lend to local governments at a much cheaper rate. It would have been wonderful for infrastructure. And speaking of Republicans, it was pushed by then Treasurer Josh Mandel, who, I mean, is one of the arguably most conservative members of the Republican Party in Ohio. He's no longer in office. But he saw the value in this. I saw the value in this. Admittedly, the banks complained because it was eating into their profit. And it's like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that we should not do this because, you might lose some profit, even though all of our local governments and all of our infrastructure needs would be cheaper? Effectively, yes, that was the answer. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't do it. And, ever since then, I've been upset about it. But that said, this National Infrastructure Bank, I would give up any thought of a state level bond bank if we could get this done at the federal level. And my colleague from Cincinnati, Catherine Ingram, who may or may not be on this call, I'm not sure, but she's on a resolution with me for this. I think she was the one that brought me on and asked me about this, along with Stu Rosenblatt. And we're going to try to get some hearings and at least pitch the case in Ohio. Whether my congressional delegation colleagues have an interest in it is one thing, but for me, it really does kind of cut the middlemen out of this. And if I understood this correctly, you have this, National Infrastructure Bank, which is a public depository, takes, it can be public and private. Well, it'll get some public seed money, but, it'll take private dollars and, make these investments. But, the payoff from a lot of these loans for these infrastructure projects go back into this National Infrastructure Bank to underwrite further projects. So it becomes self-sustaining. And I think that is incredible to cut out the middleman on something like this. I just can't stress it enough, especially as I hear, this is not really on the political side of things, but I have to do my continuing education for my engineering license. And I hear it all the time from county engineers. And I know that it's more than just roads and bridges and wastewater treatment projects and water and you name it, or the grid. But, our infrastructure is failing in Ohio. We really need to do a lot more in that space. And there seems to be a lot of hesitancy to look at the motor fuel tax, which, in full candor, I have supported increases to that in the past for the same reasons. But the economy of scale that can be leveraged with this, Ohio would never have an opportunity better than something like this. And it would be absolutely revolutionary for something like this to come into effect. So, I think in terms of getting Republicans on board, I do agree with the previous speaker. Once you get through some of the, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it, just strongly held dogma or faith over the past 40 or 50 years that all you have to do is cut taxes and deregulate. The deregulate part of it is never really specific. It's just deregulate for the sake of deregulating. And that's all you have to do. And then if you look at something like this, it's like, well, it doesn't fall in that framework, so I don't know if we're going to go for it. But the thing is we've hit a point where we just can't continue on this path. We need something novel. And this sort of idea has been done all throughout history. And I was kind of excited talking to Stu about this, that it wasn't just FDR in the past, for example, but this was Eisenhower as well. This has gone back to Lincoln. I mean, there's no reason that this cannot be bipartisan. And frankly, I just want some big bipartisan win on this. And frankly, I think, my constituents, talking to them too, and it's a little more of a competitive district than it was 20 years ago, but it's, the Senate seats in Ohio are quite large at 360,000. And I can tell you there are many, many registered Republicans that I talk to that are absolutely in favor of some of this, or in favor of ideas like this. They just want relief. They just want the bickering at the federal level and the embarrassment to stop. And I think this is a great positive step for it. And frankly, I think there's a lot of solid economics to back it up too. And that's kind of my hope with the party, to move away from, sort of the dogma that's been in place for 40 or 50 years towards, hey, I think we need to start listening to mainstream economists a little more, because they support something like this. And, anyway, I'm hopeful to at least get some hearings again on that resolution. And I am happy to, be anywhere, anytime for you guys on this idea. Whatever I can do to help to get it across the finish line, I'm more than happy to do that.
We would really appreciate that. I am working through NCAR, which is North Carolina Associated of Realtors, and NAR, which I've had 34 years in development and real estate, in a bipartisan fashion there, to get folks to be purple, right, to both sides, because you have Republicans and Democrats in the room, and they like this idea. I was at a chamber meeting today with a bunch of state people. They understand this, Senator. This just is the kind of idea that if you can just put away the partisanship and just come there and say, you know what, I want to solve problems, fill potholes, everyone's like, they're with it, So I'm with you. We need your help to get people kind of over that barrier, because, I drive home from here to go back up to Valparaiso, Indiana, and Chicago. I come down I-70 all the time. I drive across Ohio all the time, and I can see those highways, and I've been watching them for many years. They do need to be upgraded, and the price tags never get cheaper, by the way. I'll tell you that. I'm in construction for 30 years, and every time I have elected officials tell me we can do it cheaper in the future, I laugh, because it never, ever gets cheaper.
Yeah, no, and that's another thing that I like about this. I do feel like we try to, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this in other states, but there seems to be an attitude that, let's privatize everything and the markets will work all this out. And it's like, well, the private sector is, can be aligned with the needs of the public sector, but not always. And this will guarantee something like that. So, and if I recall correctly, it was to the tune of $5 trillion. So,
Right.
I think it'll be amazing. And the nice part is it's going to go to a lot of the people that, are just salt of the earth, Ohioans, your tradesmen, your blue collar workers. I mean, I have a feeling a lot of my colleagues are going to come out when they start hearing this, that it's, how come we didn't know about this? We should have known about it before. And that reminds me, I do need to get a couple House members to introduce the companion resolution in Ohio as well, not just the Senate.
We really appreciate that, Senator, and we really want to get you involved, because together we can actually make a real difference in our country and in our states doing this. And now we're going to move on to our next.
May I ask Lewis a question? May I ask Lewis a
You
question?
don't usually do this, but
That's fine.
I'll give you
I
a
know.
point of privilege. I'll give you, we have to make this quick to be responsible to our other speakers, but okay, one question.
I've been trying to get Republicans to get on board. Do you have any suggestions or helpful things that can help us do that? I mean, really, I've gotten nowhere with them. And so I would like to.
No pressure, Senator.
No, and here's the thing. I'm not actually going to answer it here. What I'm going to do is have, so Stu Rosenblatt has my cell. Let's get connected. He'll connect you so we can chat maybe tomorrow or Friday. I'll go give you the whole lay of the land, at least in Ohio, and at least how to speak Republican, if that helps.
That's very fair. Thank you very much. We are now going to move on to Representative Cole, who's a member of the Vermont House of Representatives. She graduated from Kenyon College with a BA in International Studies and a minor in biology. As an undergraduate, she studied the Universidad San Francisco de Quito in Ecuador. Sorry, I just butchered that. And has since continued her education with a graduate course in ecological economics at the University of Vermont Graduate School. So I guess you're a catamount. Currently, she's a operations manager for a music social change nonprofit called Music to Life. She also provides grant writing support for community development projects through Creative Solutions for Nonprofits, LLC. So take it away, Representative.
Hey everyone, good to be with you. I am so grateful for the invitation, and I am also just really inspired and still digesting some of the things that previous speakers before me have said. Senator Blessing, it was pretty inspiring to hear your perspective there. The bio is a little outdated, I will say that, but I am a second-term state representative in the state of Vermont, and I serve on the House Committee on Human Services. Housing is one of the issues that we are trying to drastically address right now. We have just under 5,000 homeless Vermonters right now, which is a drastic increase from 10 years ago when we were one of the, had the lowest numbers of homelessness in the state. So some real affordable housing needs there to start. It's one of my inspirations, but my underlying broader inspiration as well behind this is definitely emulates previous speakers. And something that you said, Randolph, was especially inspiring. You said dollars that don't disappear is what we're looking for. And this is my hook. This is what I've been really frustrated about. So, I mean, to summarize, really, my strongest motivation in sponsoring a resolution to help encourage Congress to establish the National Infrastructure Bank is that the cost of building infrastructure is artificially high. It's expensive and it's going to get more expensive, but it is not as expensive as it is right now. It doesn't need to be that expensive, that is. So in my state, when Vermonters think about their tax dollars going to build a school, a bridge, housing, broadband, they're assuming that their tax dollars are being used to build that said school, bridge, housing, whatever the element is. But what we aren't questioning nearly enough is that up to 40% of that cost of building that specific project is not going to that specific project at all. Rather, the money is being spent on borrowing back our own money to build that bridge. And so taxpayer funded interest leaves the state and ends up fattening the pockets of private financiers. And this does not have to be the case. This is all made up and construed. You know, as we know, history shows that there are other avenues that actually have been far more successful. So we could, as this bill proposes, be retaining and leveraging the money in our own fund instead of watching it disappear. And so that's why your quote, Randolph, resonated so much with me, because that puts it in so concisely. Dollars that don't disappear is what we are looking for. Another major difference is that the governing values of this lending institution, that National Infrastructure Bank, would differ greatly from the status quo in that that institution would not be designed to maximize profit, but rather to get projects done. So being in the House and it's budget season, it's been made clear that we will never be able to appropriate our way out of this problem. You know, just like I started this opening with our housing crisis, we have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in affordable housing in the past 10 years, but our ranking in terms of houselessness has actually gone from the very bottom, having the least number of houseless individuals in Vermont, to actually the highest. So this is disturbing, and we need to creatively re-envision how we finance our solutions and lean into success stories from the past, as the National Infrastructure Bank does. To sum it up, really, the Band-Aid approach has not worked year after year. And I am so excited by the energy, the bipartisan energy in particular, which is what it's going to take to get ourselves out of this crisis here. So thank you, thank you for all bringing us together.
Thank you, Representative Cole. The whole purpose of this endeavor is to think big and to play big and get something done in our generation that's going to actually address these problems. I'll just give you all a quick example. In my county, on my radio show, I've interviewed folks that deal with hunger. I mean, in every one of our counties, we have lots of people that have to go to food banks. You can all nod. You all know this is an issue. People living out of cars. There's areas where the food shed, you can't get food. I asked the women that run this amazing place in our county, what would it actually take to end hunger in my county? Because we only fund it about, a little bit, drips and drabs. It was about $10 million. And I went to our policymakers and said, why don't we just end hunger? And nobody could give me an answer. We're a rich county. We have money. So I look at this as, why don't we end these problems with infrastructure and get on with it, as opposed to little drips and drabs in our communities? Let's do what we used to do and dream big. So we have another speaker coming on. Representative Susan Johnson, are you here? Representative Johnson is Deputy Majority Leader of the Connecticut House of Representatives. She's a graduate of Eastern Connecticut State University, a graduate from the Western New England College of Law, as law partner in the law firm of O'Brien and Johnson, working with her husband, retired judge of probate, Dennis O'Brien. Before coming to the legislature, Representative Johnson served 3 terms as a selectman for the town of Windham. Representative Johnson is serving her 4th term as a deputy majority leader and is a member of the legislature's Appropriations Committee, Education Committee, and Human Services Committee. Representative Johnson, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation. And it's wonderful to hear everybody discussing this issue, which has been a passion of mine, to try and make sure that we try and create a public bank for Connecticut, or that we do the National Infrastructure Bank. So I have proposed legislation. Let me just say, when I first got to the legislature, it was right after the 2008 crash. And so I began serving in 2009. And one of the things that I learned about was the fact that Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro came to the Capitol in Hartford and suggested that we do public banking because of the mishandling of the economics by the private sector banks. And so I began researching it, and I found out about the State Bank of North Dakota, how they had started in 1919, and how they, a very red state, still loves their public bank very, very much. At the same time, a couple of years later, Governor Malloy tried to do a public bank, and his banking commissioner was really trying to do that. We ended up doing not a public bank, but a green bank, which is a combination of a private and public bank. They call them authorities in Connecticut. And so we actually did start the Green Bank, which is started out with just a small amount of money, and it's got about $5 billion now to help out with investments in the infrastructure for energy, sustainable energy issues. So it had some success. In the meantime, I started to propose a public bank for Connecticut, or aligning. There was an infrastructure bank that had been created by George Bush 43, and so we worked on trying to connect the state of Connecticut with them. But when you take a look at all the needs that we have for infrastructure all throughout the country, and certainly in Connecticut, there's the best way for us to do that is to keep the money in the state, or keep the money in the country, instead of having it, as everyone's been saying, having it disappear. I mean, my understanding is that we lose in the private sector, big banks, about 75% of the profits. And reinvestment. So they do it overseas. They do it in different places. They only reinvest here in this country about 25% of what they make. So it would really be great to be able to have the money invested in this country, and it would be wonderful to be able to have us have a national infrastructure bank like we used to have. And it would be so much better for us to be able to utilize the money that we have, that we pay in taxes, that we utilized to be able to be spent right here in this country to save our infrastructure and make sure that we have more access to resources for everybody, because it's been shrinking for some time now. And I know a lot of people feel that the roads and bridges should be free and that the electricity comes to you for free, but it really doesn't. You really have to pay for it. And giving away our money isn't a good idea. So this is the best chance that we have, is to have a national infrastructure bank take care of the country and the people. So I'm very pleased to be part of this. I will be working on trying to organize again, and I love the suggestions of having the realtors and the chamber work on this. And I'm going to, I think one of my ideas will be to go to the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, because the municipalities in Connecticut don't have the resources to do all these things on their own. And I think our municipalities working together with realtors in the chamber would be a really great way for us to help push this. And we're thinking about maybe on the federal level who might be good. And maybe we should go back to Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, as you're giving me ideas, and see what we can do to tell her how much support she would have in Connecticut to bring back that idea that she brought to us back after the crash in 2009. So thank you so much.
I think those would all be excellent ideas, Susan. We did actually, Stuart and Angela and I, at the Democratic Municipal Officials meeting in Durham, I think met an official from Bridgeport who's
Yes.
down here. They're very interested in this. And the bottom line is, my experience in private side and as a mayor is every dollar you spend in the community, it has a 3-to-1 effect, because this can't be done by AI bots. Last
Right.
I checked, they can't go off and get in, check in and build sewer lines and things like that. They can work for, online doing what they're doing. This is something that real people benefit, and the money flows in our communities. And that's really how we're going to get growth in our communities, by investing in them, which we have not
Absolutely.
done in a long time. And this is a way to do it. So really appreciate your help.
Thank you so
Now,
much.
you are welcome. We are going to go out west to Ginny Ballou, who's the Western Director of the National Federation of Democratic Women. She and Carolyn Fowler recently sponsored and passed a resolution at the National Federation Conference in support of the National Infrastructure Bank, which actually helped us secure other very, very important national resolutions. She's also president of the Idaho Democratic Women's Caucus. Take it away.
Why, thank you so much, Randy. I am Ginny Ballou. I am originally from New York, born and raised right outside New York City in Westchester County. So I went to school in Vermont. My daughter lives in southern Cincinnati, otherwise known as Louisville, Kentucky. So kind of connections with all of you that have been speaking. Loved hearing Anthony's on this Appalachian harvest. I want to see more on that. But I'd like us to kind of go back a little bit on what this bill is. So this is an infrastructure bank. It's looking for the funding, the approval for the charter from Congress. So we're looking for all the sponsors we can get so that we can get it passed in the House and then get a Senate bill, get that passed, so we can get this established with no end date. The four of previous infrastructure banks, national banks, had charter dates that expired, and we're smarter than that. We're going to keep this one going. So we're looking to get it funded so that we can start doing these projects. And these are covering 20, I think it's 18 plus another 6 areas of infrastructure that are not being met. Out here in Idaho, we are one of the biggest states by land, one of the smallest by population, and we've got 72% of our bridges are a D or lower grade. That means entire communities will be isolated when they can't get out, and they don't have broadband. So, they're going to be totally isolated. We have a lot of things that need to be fixed that are bigger than any small community, certainly, and that are larger than any state. We cross lines. We've got spots in our narrowest spots where you've got 3 states. I'm a big red state, so we've decided that you don't need licensing for electrical or plumbing because those people should know what they're doing. And but yet we put onto small farmers onerous new regulations that I talked to a guy recently in one of our small farm communities that's been really working to try and stay as small individual farms. They wanted $3 million for him to upgrade the structure of his onion shed. He says, there's never people in it. The only thing in it's onions. They said, what it could burn. And he goes, so then it would smell great in the whole town because all you're going to burn is onions. But they want $3 million. But somebody else will take it over for him and you don't have to worry. And then he loses his family's 7 generations of farming the land. So this infrastructure bank not only gives us the infrastructure that we need in our small and large cities. Our large cities need water, they need housing. You all know what they need. But we don't have the way to get it to where it's going across state lines, where it's taking care of all of us, and to where it doesn't go away. So once this is in place, it's no longer under the government's well-being. We don't need someone in power in the administration to say, oh, we still like you, you can continue your project. It operates outside and on its own under normal regulations. I would love to see light rail going through Idaho. I grew up with trains going up and down the East Coast. I'd like to see those upgraded. When's the last time you saw a really cool new train station? Or been into an airport that actually felt like a really great place to be? One of my kids is a doctor of mathematics and speaks around the world. And boy, some of the airports he goes through are amazing. Singapore's phenomenal. We could be doing this. Where did we lose our desire to be the best and to have innovative things? The last thing I want to talk about on this is that it's a jobs bill. It's not just about what kind of infrastructure can we build. It's about employing people in their communities. As we've been saying, of that, keep that dollar at home. This is hiring people with shovels, with wrenches. It's hiring people with engineering. It's hiring people that do maintenance. And yeah, there's a lot of machinery that can do some of this work, but you still need people to get in a crawl space. One of the ones my master electrician's son likes to use is that you just can't teach AI to get in the attic and find a raccoon. And you're going to need people for doing some of these jobs. There's just things that need people. And that's what we need here is, and lastly, I would say, I love the idea, Senator Blessing, we could get more Republicans involved in this. That would certainly be the best way to go. But until that happens, I think Democrats should be running on this. I am a proud Democrat. My mother stopped on her way to the hospital to have me to vote for JFK. And I think Democrats should be saying, we are here to put the country back to work. We have a plan to build, we have a plan to employ, and we have a plan to succeed and prosper as an entire country, red, blue, and in between. So thank you very much, and we appreciate you all being on.
Thank you very much. I think we have Representative Rubin is with us. I read his bio earlier, so I'll just say Phil Rubin is an attorney and serves in the North Carolina House of Representatives. Phil, I really appreciate you getting on. I actually sang Hosannas to you the other day at a bipartisan meeting precisely because of the work you've been doing on NIB.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Randolph. And I'm sorry not to be able to join until just now. I walked out of a meeting that I'm in. You can see I'm in like a ballroom kind of setting behind me. And I wanted to be able to join y'all tonight because of how important the NIB is to me. And so I am thrilled to get to talk to you. And I thought what I would talk to you tonight is a little bit about hope. And I've gotten lately the feedback from folks that I'm giving them a sense of optimism about where we're heading in the future. But I would tell you that optimism isn't this sort of just baseless belief that things are going to be okay. Faith and hope, they come from the idea that you've got a plan. And to me, I gain a lot of that hope from the National Bank, right? National Infrastructure Bank tells us that we actually have a way out of the situation that we're in. And here in North Carolina, where I'm a member of the North Carolina State House, we have huge problems with underinvestment in our future. And there are a lot of nuts and bolts things. We're $8 billion behind on roads, plain and simple. Our electricity costs are soaring because we haven't invested in it. And we have a housing crisis that is ultimately a supply issue. And here in Raleigh, where I live, it's just a hugely 66 people a day move into the county that I live in. It's growing really fast, but people can't really afford to live here. But they also can't afford to live outside of the city because you can't get to the city quickly because we never expanded the infrastructure. And so what that means is we need a way to build that infrastructure back and to do it quickly and to get it funded right away. There is a major highway between a smaller town called Wake Forest, near where I live, and Raleigh. It should take 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes on a bad day to get downtown. It takes an hour. And that's because we haven't expanded roads, we haven't expanded water, we haven't made this a community that can be a good bedroom community for people that work in Raleigh. And the end result of that is just diminished futures for everyone. It is a lower, less hopeful future. And at the end of the day, whenever I bring that up, especially to colleagues who aren't sort of on board with this yet, they basically say, yeah, but we can't pay for that. And the NIB is my answer for how we can pay for that. It is a viable, it is a proven, and it is a workable solution to actually fix the infrastructure problems. And something that Jenny said really stuck with me about sort of when did we stop thinking we could do stuff like this? When did we stop thinking that we could do big things? This is the country that put somebody on the moon, and we couldn't even get back there today. And so I think that this is our ticket to doing big things again. And yeah, sometimes big things are infrastructure, right? And so I think that this is not just an option or a way forward. It is the thing that gives me hope that not only could things be okay, but that if we follow this path, it will be okay. And so obviously the details of it matter and how it works and why it works and the history and all of that matters, and it's really important. But I also want to stand for the principle that this is a country that can do big things and that the NIB is an example of how we can do it. And just to close, I also cite this to people. Speaking of singing praises, Randolph, I sing y'all's praises as examples of how to organize around a vision. Because you have built this and you have been bringing, every time I talk to y'all, there's more co-sponsors coming onto the bill. And I see the hard work that entails. It's not just hoping people kind of figure it out and sign up. You're having the meetings, you're pushing, you're doing these Zooms. I'm here to help any way that I can. I'm grateful for all the work. And thank you to y'all for listening to me tonight.
Well, thank you, Phil. I have to tell you that I would certainly give away the fact that I have fans that listen to my radio show and have to spend 55 minutes. I'm serious. I had a guy today approach me that listened to Walt McCree, who's a supporter. We did a show with him on public banking. It's a 55-minute show that's on Spotify now, that was on WCHL. I would be happy if his commute was only 25 minutes and didn't listen to my show. He was just telling me, because there's not a lot to listen to when you're stuck in traffic. Exactly what you're saying. You're saying this morning at breakfast. It's a problem that needs to be addressed, and it's getting worse.
Absolutely. And just if I can throw this in, there's this big fight in North Carolina over whether to make the road between Wake Forest and Raleigh a toll road. And my answer is it's already a toll road. When you spend an extra 80 cents in gas every day because we never expanded the road, it's a toll road today. You're just paying it at the gas pump. Thanks, Randolph.
I have one thing I want you, Phil, tell this crowd, don't we still not have a budget in the state? I don't think most people know that we're the last state in the union that doesn't have a budget.
That's right. Like, we have no budget. It was Pennsylvania and us, and then Pennsylvania got it done. And that was, I think, 6 months ago. We're the last state in the union. And it's actually a uniparty control of the legislature, and they still can't get a budget done. It's a real crisis. And like I said, $8 billion behind on roads, and the budget fixes none of that, even if they pass it.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Representative, for coming on tonight. We really appreciate your help, and we're going to get this done as we continue to add sponsors in Congress. Who has the first question for the speakers? You can just raise your hand. We will, if there are no questions, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, can I jump in for a second? Andy Winnick. I'm on the advisory panel for the infrastructure bank.
What is your question or comment, or both?
Make a quick comment. Well, a lot of the focus we've been talking about is all about the infrastructure itself, and that's absolutely critical, and it's true. But as Ginny mentioned, and we really need to expand on that, is the question, this is a jobs bill, and it's a jobs bill on two different levels. On one level, you can't build infrastructure without the stuff you build with, whether it's steel for the railroads, or whether it's the car for the trains, or whether it's material to make a house, whatever it is, you've got to have the material. And that requires jobs. That requires an industrial base to build the stuff, to make the stuff that you're going to build with a bridge, whatever it is. The second thing is then you need a second wave of labor because the stuff does you no good if you can't put it together and build something. And that requires a lot of labor. And it's not something that AI is going to do. AI is not going to lay track. It's not going to build the struts on a bridge. It's not going to, on and on. The point is, this is a job still. We can double the rate of growth of this economy in terms of labor. And right now, the stock market's doing okay. The wealthy people are doing okay, but the jobs market is weak, and it's going to get weaker with AI. Let's not kid ourselves. AI is going to take a lot of jobs. This can replace those jobs with really excellent, well-paying jobs, made in America goods, both making the materials and then putting up the projects. And we have to think of this as a jobs bill, and there's no alternative. And the bottom line is also, and one more thing, and I'll stop, and that is when you generate the income from building all this, what you're doing is increasing the tax base. And you're going to be doubling the rate of growth of GDP. And when you double the rate of growth of GDP, you're talking about a whole new stream of income in taxes to government at all levels, from the local to the federal. And it is the only way we can really solve the economic problems that we have as a country. And so I'll stop with that and thank you.
Well, you're actually referring to the rule of 72, Andy. If you go from 2% to 3%, if people know, you just divide 10 into 72 and you can figure out how fast you're going to double. So going from 2 to 3% or 4% is a significant increase in growth of the economy.
Absolutely.
That's what you're referring to. Michael Melio, we'll recognize you.
Thank
Comment,
you,
questions?
Randolph. Just a question, actually. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Good. Does the NIB, I'm sorry I don't know all the details, but does the NIB allocate funds for local public bank capitalization? City, county, state,
And it
public
does
bank.
it in.
Yeah.
Stuart, do you want to address, or
No,
Angela, what's in the legislation
No,
proposed?
it's not. It's actually not in the legislation. What is in the legislation is a collaborative effort between public banks and the National Infrastructure Bank, and there are clauses in the bill relating to that. Now, look, it's really funny. We're on the phone all day with every walk of life, official and political person, and we have a lot of requests and suggestions. Like Randy knows we had a really excellent call with a number of leaders of the CWA union, both national and states.
Mhm.
And they had suggestions about how we should strengthen the bill relating to in various work rules and whatnot. And our view was the same on this, Mike, is that, look, let's get as many sponsors as we can. Let's see if this thing can move. This session, we're not ruling anything out, believe it or not. This is a very volatile political situation. And we already have 4 ranking Democrats on the bill. That is, they would be committee chairs. So we could have hearings. It's not inconceivable that the bill would, Congress is a sausage machine. We are for changes in the bill. So that would be, the kind of place where this could be raised. And, along with the labor folks who want to add some stuff, we have various other elected officials who want to raise stuff. We're for it. But right now, we've got to create the venue in which that could take place. The bill in its present form can't be changed. But that's not to say Congress can't change it.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback.
Sure.
I just wanted to comment that I brought that up because there are examples where around the world, particularly in Germany, I'm thinking the Sparkassen banks, you all know about them, but where a distribution of the money supply at the local level through these banks having their own jurisdiction, usually associated with a city or a region, a state, whatever it might be, a political jurisdiction. Those are the banks that provide a lot of the jobs. 70%, according to Richard Werner, 70% of job creation is by local small businesses. That's 70% of the job market. That's dying for cash right now. The numbers are staggering. I've been doing the studies, and Ellen can testify to this. There are tremendous losses of local banks. Local banks provide the funding necessary for small enterprises, small and medium enterprises. And that market is dying rapidly. We have lost, since 1921, we've lost 86% of our banking sector, the local banking sector. These are staggering numbers. Local public banks, a city public bank, a county public bank, or a state public bank, can empower those local financial institutions, make them stable, partner with them, and bring about a renaissance of a kind we haven't seen since the revolution. So that's why I make this point. It's simply we should think locally, in our funding and our efforts. But the National Infrastructure Bank is a big step. And if they had a provision in there to help these local communities with a public bank, that would be a great, great thing.
Yeah. Well, as I said, that's the kind of thing that could be discussed. And there are sections in the bill on working with community banks as well. Or, in other words, our view is, yeah, we got to build up, all these local and regional banks to, supersede the role of the JP Morgan Chases and others. Although, with a financial crisis on the horizon, who knows? I mean, JP Morgan Chase might be, begging us to, for business. I'm just not kidding, but it's a wild situation. Yeah, but we appreciate your comments. I mean, as I said, we've got sections in the bill already where the public banks, community banks work with the National Infrastructure Bank. So,
Michael, I think you're on the right path there. Years ago, I participated in a book that was presented to the Club of Rome. I was working with an economist, Dr. Sally Gerner, out of Ewing at Chapel Hill here. But her studies were comparing biological systems to economic systems. And basically, I'll just reduce it to this simple concept. In biological systems, you have like your whales, your apex predators, all the way down to the plankton. And what you're describing is in our study, that chapter was the plankton, all these little community banks. And then at the top, you have your whales and what's happened is all we have are whales and barracudas and sharks, and there are no other fish to feed on. And eventually we were showing them that when ecological systems get into this situation, everything dies, right? And so we were actually I have some information connected to what you said. I should dig it out. That was exactly, because this all kind of got really interesting after the crash of 2008. Everyone was doing these studies, and now we seem to have forgot about it, but I'm with you. Are there any other questions or comments this evening?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something, Randy. This is Angela, because obviously what Michael is bringing up is really critical, that we want to bring everybody into this fight, big, small, or little. But the issue is government, and this is what Ginny addressed, and also Representative Rubin, that, the idea is that you have to have a big vision, you have to have a powerful government, and that's the power of the small people, that they can't really, operate on their own. They really need, government to back them up. So I think we got some, who do we have?
John Hewitt is trying to.
Oh, I think we have somebody else.
He's trying to get in.
Oh, okay. So somebody else is trying to get in as state rep, but I think we got Joe Polito, Randy.
Do we have someone else who's a speaker or a question?
Question from Joe Polito.
Okay, Joe, you should be unmuted.
Yeah, it's not really questions, an observation. With the help of Stuart and Angela, we had Alfecca present to a Canadian politician who's in the same party as Mark Carney, whose name is now better known, I guess, after his speaking at Davos. And he was very impressed with the presentation they did. And I'll be talking to him more about how we could communicate your message to the Prime Minister. And I want to add as well, John Maynard Keynes once said a long time ago in a paper, which I can always share with you folks, that anything we can actually do, we can afford. And the actually afford part is what you're doing. You're making sure that enough money is issued so that that capacity is achieved. And certainly the precedent in World War II, where the money supply pretty much doubled thanks to the RFC, is proof of that. So I applaud you all for so much success in reaching politicians and creating this momentum.
Thank you for your help and anything you can do to keep pushing this along. Representative Johnson, you have your hand up, or digitally you have your hand up.
I have my hand up. Just wanted to, you struck a chord, another thought about how to maybe organize this, because it's one of the problems I've had over the last several years is I had groups organized to do public banking, and then the banking commissioner in my state really came after me. So anyway, but the thought is this, one of the things that I'm aware of is that in the state, each state has control over the state banks. So the small banks, state and local banks, are controlled by the banking commissioners in those states. If in fact all the states become national, then the states won't have control over their local banks anymore. Everything will have to be done through the federal government, which is going to be a very difficult thing for investments, for people making transfers to, say, between people when they go try to get onto Medicaid, for example, and they have investments and they have to be spent, and the federal level isn't as responsive as the state level. So the oversight over banks is going to be lost by the states if we don't try and get a little more control. So it's just a thought, and I thought I'd share that.
It's an excellent thought. And I agree with you, Representative. Every time we try to make movements forward on this, people come out of the woodwork when they think it's going to happen and naysay. And I can remember being in a room with our state treasurer in 2009 and some of our state senators talking about what we can do along these lines with public banking. And at the time, they had lost about 50% of the equity, because they managed the money for all of our workers, right? And I was the mayor, and a lot of our workers had the money pension. And he said to me, "Well, what experience do you have with this so-called public banking thing?" And I said, "Well, I have no experience losing $50 billion of the public's money when it crashed, and that shut him up. And then we started talking about it. Because frankly, it's a good idea, and they're always going to come out. But I think now we're there. I think enough people realize that if we're going to create jobs, we're going to do this in our communities, this is how it's got to be done. And we got to work on this call. And I beseech all of you to get on these calls during the week when you can, and reach out to your legislators, your congressional members, work with Stuart, Alfecca, Angela. I get on, a lot of us get on these calls. It's working. We went from nobody to 55 now, and we're going to get 100 co-sponsors. We're going to do it, and we're developing momentum. So who else do we have? Okay, Representative Hewitt is a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives and has been serving since 2019. He represents the Southern Twin Cities metropolitan area. He attended trade school in Winona, Minnesota, and received an emergency medical technician certification from Century College and a real estate certification from Kaplan Vocational Technical School. Hewitt serves as vice chair of the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Committee and sits on the Property Tax Division of the Taxes Committees. I'm sure that's an interesting committee, and the Public Safety, Finance, and Policy and Rules Legislation Administration Committee. Representative, take it away.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, then I'll keep talking. So, yeah, that looks like my last session resume, but I'm on the main tax committee now. I'm also on Commerce and what's the other one? Health. That's where I'm at now. Served on bonding in the past, which I think this is what we're going to talk about in a short note here. and have been involved in many bonding projects around the state. Everything from the University of Minnesota's new chemistry lab that they're building to our zoological gardens that we use for bonding. In my district alone, we use it for bridges and many of the road work and stuff like that. I think I'm a big supporter of this project that we are all talking about right now. I think because of what's going on in Washington, we're going to be looking at very problem areas here of how we're going to continue to be able to do robust bonding. I mean, our bonding bill, the last 2 cycles have been well over $1.5 billion. Maybe that's not a lot for somebody in California or whatever. I wouldn't know, but here that's a pretty good sized bonding bill. And we're, we can't give it all out. I mean, we'd love to help every community, but I think with the plan, something similar to this, like my own community I live in, they could definitely support the debt of a bonding project on their own. They wouldn't have to go through us. It would be really good that they could have a tool similar to this that they can use. Whereas in a normal year, and I don't mean to say this, but who shows up enough where a small town like Big Fork, Minnesota, that really could use bonding support from the state doesn't get to use it because they're getting beat up and they don't have the people to send down to our capital in St. Paul. So I think this would be a better tool where we could support more of those harder projects that don't have the tax base. And like places like my town has a good tax base where they could go to a program like this. So the more I hear about it, the more I'm intrigued with where we want to take this. And I think it would be a real good thing for economic development as well as infrastructure. I mean, that's the other thing that I don't think Washington's into investing in our infrastructure in our states right now. And what they're doing now, we're going to, as all legislators know, is going to affect us for the next 10 years, especially when we're investing in infrastructure. And I think we're going to have some stumbles here because I don't know if you guys have some crystal ball that tells me something different here, but I'm very concerned about us having to backfill what Washington is now cutting out of our budgets. And, how are we going to work through this? And I think this is a real creative way for us to continue building, creating jobs, and helping our municipal counties and towns.
I totally agree. Through the magic of banking, the reality is, Representative, that this is a symbiotic relationship. So you're not going to actually lose what we currently do with grants or bonds or any other way to actually fund municipal projects or county. What this will do is enable us to actually address what needs to be done and actually kind of plug in a much bigger way. So the current system right now doesn't really address everything. And frankly, you can't even get some of the things built because a community, like if you're in a rural area like my town, you might not be able to get bonding, right, to build the wastewater treatment plant.
That's exactly what I'm trying to get at with this is that we really have to do the haves and the have-nots, and a lot of times those rural areas suffer because of the way we do it today. I know we're going to keep both sets. I mean, that's what we have to do, but I think this will free up funds and let cities and counties and areas that have the tax base to support this will be able to handle it where we can, I guess, spread the wealth. If that, I don't like using those words, but that's really what it comes down to.
Well, what it comes down to with infrastructure is we have artificial county lines and state lines. The fact is we all use infrastructure that cross all of those barriers. And so that's why we need, whether you're talking about trains or you're talking about water or sewer or roads or what have you, they're not just contained or self-contained within my town. They stretch to other places. And that's why getting behind this creates jobs, fixes these problems, and helps these rural areas as well as the exurban areas, the suburban areas, and the cities. My grandmother was born in Brainerd. I don't know if you've ever been to that part of Minnesota.
I've been to every part of Minnesota, yes, and Brainerd is one of our largest vacation areas in the state. Yes,
that's right. She was born in one of those cabins. If you ever watch Fargo, she was born in one of those cabins in 1911. So it's my mom's mom. Her name was Nygaard, which is a total Nygaard and Carlson, total Minnesota name.
Yeah, those are totally Minnesota names if there are. I mean, you either got a name like that or you got an Irish name. So that's
bingo.
Basically where it comes out. But yeah, no, that's a story. I was gonna guess she was born in the Catholic hospital up there, but you're talking before even that was built. So that's interesting.
But hey,
that's right. So who do we else have on here, Stu? We have any other speakers that are available?
No. But by the way, Representative Hewitt, if he's still on, is active with the realtors also, Randy.
Well, that's what we'd like to talk with you online about. I work with governing affairs in the state. We'll be up in DC, and I'm putting this. I talked to the president of the National Association of Realtors, our new president, Kevin Brown, about this. They like this idea. So I really think if we could get realtors kind of pushing this, and I've talked to labor because I have a foot in there, and I've talked to people from the chamber. This is something that normal groups that don't work together are all seeing the light because every one of them understands the value of doing this.
It helps everyone. Yeah, you're hitting it right. Anytime we have infrastructure to this capacity where we're bonding for it, develops its own economy behind it. And houses start to build, people start to move, groups come in. Yeah, I totally agree with you, and the realtors should support this 100%. I mean, that's how they keep their jobs.
Right. I mean, look, when I was mayor in my community, I never had a citizen call me up at night and say, I want all the dirty, nasty water you can supply. I want potholes in all the roads. Everyone wants good infrastructure, right? I got lots of other complaints like picking up trash and things, but they always want clean water. They always want nice roads. They always want good infrastructure, and this is a way forward. So are there...
we have that right now in Minnesota. The forever chemicals are killing us up here. And
that's right.
It's literally killing us. But we had a good Minnesota company, but they were doing stuff they probably shouldn't have, and we got a lot of the PFAS in most of our drinking water. So we're looking at water treatment systems having to be put in almost every system that's out there that's municipal. And here's a fine example. I mean, I'm gonna probably write a bonding bill as soon as my mayor wakes up that we got to do it here in our town, and this would be a very, very good option for them to look at. I mean, it's that's what I think, because we have a humongous problem in Minnesota. Right now, I don't think the current structure in Washington is going to put a lot of grants into this. So I think that this is really. We have to look more innovative. This is the way we got to do it, and it'll help all sorts of people.
I'm totally with you. So, do we have any other questions? We have one person with their hand raised.
I have a problem trying to explain some of this to people that aren't, representatives or whatever. And I just think there's going to be more problems. People are not going to understand. They're going to think there's a deal or something that somebody's going to, that they conjure up a lot of things. And I'm thinking about lobbyists too. They're going to go against this bank. The banking lobbyists are going to try to, right? They're going to try to stop us. How do we fight this? How do we fight it when it happens?
Well, there's always lobbyists against puppy dogs and love too. I mean, we have to be ready for the fight and ready to win. I mean, that's the bottom line. There's always going to be somebody that has something to say, and their perspective, could be rational or irrational, but we're in this. I think one of the key things, by the way, if you look at these resolutions, we got NACO to get in support, and that was some really good work by our folks. The National Association of County Commissioners is not a leftist socialist organization. I have a lot of friends who are county commissioners. I've elected a lot of them. And you got Republicans and Democrats in the room, and mostly that is a Republican organization nationally, but slightly. They are behind this, which is a real key indicator of what people really think and understand when you take out the noise and you're sitting there like, how am I going to build schools and roads? Things like that. And then, we have other groups and other cities and counties that are behind us. And I really think that speaks volumes. I mean, look, this isn't going to happen like that. But the reality is we've come a long way just in the time I got involved. I mean, it's not me doing it, but I mean, I can only speak to my time here, which is about 2 years. I feel like we're doing a lot and we're getting to, and I think this is going to happen.
I hope.
And I feel like timing is everything, and look, I'm a musician among other things, and I'm a drummer. I'm not a lead singer. I'm not a lead guitar player. But here's the deal. It's the rhythm that makes it happen. We can get other people playing the lead, but it's the rhythm that does it. And we're starting to create the rhythm, and that's how this is going to happen. People respond to that.
I also want to add, Ingrid, is that the purpose of these national calls is to show people our progress and to show people that are actively in the fight. However, on a daily basis, we have these 30-minute Zoom calls for anybody that really wants to delve in and learn more about how the bank works. So anybody who's interested in setting up a Zoom call with themselves, with their group, with their colleagues, their friends, they should email us, because you're absolutely right. People have to really understand this, and we can't go through every detail on every call, because we only do these once a month. So you're right in asking this question, and we preempted this by thinking about what people can actually do to ameliorate the problem.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
I get it. Michael, I'll let you make a last comment here.
Thank you very much. This has been absolutely spectacular congregation of very like-minded and sensitive people who want to see substantive change. That said, to get back to the messaging question that was raised earlier by the person whose name I'm so sorry I'm forgetting at the moment. One of the messages that we could employ trying to reach the communities is, look, we all pay taxes. You pay sales taxes to your city, property taxes to your county, state income taxes and fees to the state, and federal income taxes to the national government. This is money that is, and I have the studies for this, and you can check me out on it. 93% of all the money that are received in deposits from our governments, city, county, and state, into private Wall Street banks represents 93% of all our revenue. That is money that could be put in a city public bank, a county public bank, or a state public bank, or a national public bank, a national infrastructure bank, if you want. But every level of government should have their own bank. And that should be common sense, because why are we depositing our hard-earned public money in private Wall Street banks? I'll leave you with that.
I hear you. I'll let Joe say the last thing, but before I get to you, Joe, just want to offer a perspective to Ingrid. One of my degrees was in East Asian studies. I spent a lot of time studying Japan, and I went to Catholic school, I'll admit it, for years. And I learned a lot about the Franciscan model versus the Jesuit model, or the Dominican versus Jesuit. And when you look at these two ways of getting messaging and converting people to your message, some of us have to be Franciscans and Dominicans out there with the people, talking to them in our local precincts, our local towns, and talking about jobs and infrastructure. And some of us have to convince people that at that time would be the shogunate right? The Tokugawa Bakufu, and say, hey, I need to convince you to make it from the top down. We're going to meet in the middle. We're trying to get this sponsored in Congress. We're going to have a president sign it into law. That's the top. But at the same time, these calls we do every day are what we're doing out there at the bottom. And I invite you to join us because that is how we're bringing it up and going top down. And I know we're going to get this done. So, Joe, I'll let you make the last comment.
Thank you.
That's a lot of pressure. Yeah, I would just add to Michael's comment that the punchline would be, if you owned your own bank, would you use somebody else's bank? Or would you do all your business with your own bank?
That's a very effective punchline.
Okay.
Any other comments other than we know that we need to support our folks because that's how we actually meet folks and make a difference. Every contribution matters. I've managed to wangle a couple organizations to support, but anything you can do helps and gets this done. Any last things, Stuart and Angela, before we call it a night?
Just quickly, I wanted to say I do have a radio show as well, and it might be a nice thing for us to do at some point to talk about that on our radio show. The radio show is podcasted, and I also blast it throughout the state. So this would be a great way to get the information back out again to the people who I've been campaigning
Well,
on.
Susan, I'll invite you to our show for Zoom, and if you want me on yours, but I'll blast you down here. You just have to come in on Zoom, and then we air it out before UNC. We cover all the UNC games, so you'll be right there before UNC.
We cover all the UConn games here.
Yeah, so there you go. I'd be happy to do that.
I think that would be great fun. We'll have to figure out a time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If that's it, and we'll call it an evening till we do the next one in March. Thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate your time. We're going to keep pushing this.